The Detroit River ran the color of old pennies that mid-October morning, slow and thick under a sky the shade of wet concrete. Alex Rivera stood on the loading dock behind Rivera Restoration, watching a coal barge slide past Belle Isle with the low groan of engines that had been working the same route since his father was a boy. At 39, he still moved like a man who once kept ships from swallowing the sea, shoulders squared, hands steady, eyes scanning for the next crack that needed sealing. The shop smelled of fresh-cut pine, linseed oil, and the faint metallic bite of solder. Inside, two apprentices argued good-naturedly over a miter saw while Motown played low on the radio, Marvin Gaye asking what's going on like he already knew the answer. Alex's phone vibrated against his thigh. He pulled it out with fingers still dusted in sawdust. A photo from Leela. Her My Hero poster laid flat on the kitchen table of their bungalow on Joy Road. In the center, she had placed a snapshot of the two of them on the Riverwalk last summer, his arm around her narrow shoulders, both of them laughing at something the camera never caught. Around the edges, she had arranged smaller pictures. Him teaching her to swing a hammer, the two of them painting her bedroom the soft gray she chose, him reading to her on the porch while the streetlights flickered on. At the bottom, in her careful, slightly slanted handwriting, Alex Rivera rebuilds what the city tries to forget. He rebuilt me. He smiled, the kind that started somewhere behind the ribs and only reached his mouth after a moment. 3 years ago, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services had placed Leela with him after a home study that felt longer than any deployment. Single men were still rare in the system, but the caseworker had written in her final report, Mr. Rivera demonstrates quiet, consistent emotional availability. The day the judge signed the order, Leela had pressed her face into his shirt and whispered, "I get to stay," like she was afraid the words would break if spoken louder. He typed back, "Look strong, kid. They're going to see you." He was still looking at the photo when the silver SUV rolled to a stop at the curb, hood steaming like breath in winter. A woman climbed out, mid-40s, charcoal coat belted tight, dark hair pinned back, the kind of posture that belonged in city planning meetings rather than on a potholed stretch of Michigan Avenue. Victoria Reyes. He recognized the name from the community meetings at the old Cass Tech Auditorium. Reyes Community Builders had just broken ground on the new green corridor along the Deckwinder Cut. Affordable units, resident first, no luxury flippers. The project made developers nervous and neighbors hopeful. The radiator hissed again. She muttered something under her breath, then noticed him watching. "Need a hand?" Alex asked, already walking over, rag in his back pocket. She studied him a moment, coveralls, work boots, no sales pitch in his eyes, then nodded. "Hose blew on the way to a site walk. I was trying to beat the lunch rush." He popped the hood, traced the leak, and 10 minutes later had it clamped and topped off with coolant from the shop fridge. No charge. When she reached for her wallet, he shook his head. "You're putting roofs over heads that need them," he said. "That's worth more than a hose clamp." Victoria's gaze lingered. "Most people around here would have charged double and told me to call a tow. Most people didn't grow up watching their block get boarded up one house at a time." She extended her hand. "Victoria Reyes. Alex Rivera." Her grip was firm, warm, no hesitation. "I owe you one, Alex Rivera." As the SUV pulled away, exhaust curling into the chill, he watched until it disappeared toward the river. The barge had moved on. The water kept its same slow, indifferent pace. He went back inside, hung the rag on its hook, and tried to ignore the small, unfamiliar feeling that something had just shifted, like the first crack of daylight after a long night watch. That evening, the bungalow smelled of tomato soup and grilled cheese, Leela's favorite when the weather turned. She sat at the kitchen table, still working on the poster, tongue between her teeth in concentration. The radio played low, Smokey Robinson this time, while Alex stirred the pot. "You nervous about tomorrow?" he asked. Leela shrugged without looking up. "A little. Mrs. Marquez is strict, but it's true, all of it. You're my hero. Not because you're perfect, because you stayed." He set a bowl in front of her. "That's enough for me." She glanced at him, eyes bright and fierce in the way only 12-year-olds can manage. "Aunt Carla keeps texting Mom about the dinner Saturday. Says we need to talk about my situation." Alex's spoon paused mid-stir. Carla's voice in his head, "You're 39, Alex, still fixing other people's houses. Still raising somebody else's kid on a welder's pay." He had heard the tone since he enlisted instead of taking the scholarship she had lined up. Some things never changed. "We'll handle Saturday when it comes," he said. "Tonight it's soup and that poster. Finish the timeline of the house on Porter Street, the one we saved from the demo list." Leela grinned and went back to her markers. Later, after she had gone to bed, Alex stepped onto the back porch. The chain-link fence caught the streetlight, throwing long shadows across the small yard. The river was somewhere beyond the rooftops, invisible but always there, carrying whatever the city gave it: old tires, lost keys, quiet promises. He thought of Victoria Reyes's steady handshake, the way her eyes had measured him without pity or surprise. He thought of Leela's poster waiting on the table like a small flag planted in uncertain ground. He had no way of knowing that in less than 48 hours, in the Cass Tech Middle School gymnasium, that same poster would be held up to the light and torn in half, while 30 children watched. Or that the woman whose radiator he had fixed without a second thought would be the one voice that refused to stay silent. But Saturday night, when the family dinner table grew quiet and Carla's questions turned sharp, Alex would feel the old weight settle heavier than ever. Because the very next afternoon, in front of a gymnasium full of strangers, his daughter's truth would be called a lie, and the quiet life he had guarded for 3 years would be dragged into the open whether he was ready or not. Saturday evening settled over the Near East Side like a heavy coat, the air sharp with leaf smoke and the distant rumble of traffic on East Grand Boulevard. Alex pulled the Ford pickup into Rose's driveway, gravel crunching under the tires. The bungalow still wore the same pale yellow siding his father had brushed on one long summer when Alex was 12. The porch light burned steady amber against the dusk. Leela sat beside him, poster tube balanced across her knees, fingers drumming a quiet rhythm on the cardboard. "You ready for this?" he asked. She gave a small shrug. "Aunt Carla's been texting all week. Says we need to discuss my future plans." Alex killed the engine. "We'll eat first, talk later, one thing at a time." Inside, the house smelled of roasted pork shoulder, garlic, and the faint sweetness of flan cooling on the counter. Rosa met them at the door, arms open. She hugged Leela longest, murmuring into her hair, then pulled Alex close enough that he could smell the rosewater she still dabbed behind her ears. "Me," she said softly. "You look tired." "Shop's busy," he answered. "Nothing new." Carla stood at the kitchen island, sleeves rolled to her elbows, pouring red wine into mismatched glasses. Corporate jacket hung on the back of a chair. Her hair was still in the tight knot she wore to the bank downtown. She gave Alex the once-over, clean flannel, jeans without holes, and her mouth tightened the way it always did when she decided he was still refusing to climb the ladder she had spent years building. "Dinner's ready," she said. "Sit." The table was set for 5. Rosa at the head, Carla to her right, Miguel, Carla's husband, quiet and steady in his Ford Polo. Across from her, their teenage son scrolling on his phone until Rosa shot him a look. Leela took the chair beside Alex, poster tube propped against her leg like a rifle she didn't want to set down. Conversation stayed light at first. The Lion's latest collapse, the new coffee shop on Woodward charging $6 for drip, how the river looked prettier since the city cleaned up the old mill sites. Then Carla set her fork down. "So," she said, eyes on Leela, "this my hero project, 7th grade now, big deal." Leela nodded, proud. "It's due Monday. I finished the last part last night." Carla smiled, but it stayed on the surface. "And you picked Alex." "Yeah," Leela's voice held steady. "He's the one who's always here." Rosa reached over and covered Leela's hand with her own. Miguel cleared his throat. The teenager glanced up, curious. Carla leaned forward slightly. "Sweetheart, it's sweet, but a hero project. Teachers expect firefighters, soldiers with medals, maybe a doctor. Not," she gestured loosely toward Alex, "a guy who patches up old houses for a living and took in a foster kid on a VA check and a small business paycheck." The room stilled. Alex felt the familiar heat rise in his chest. Not anger yet, just the slow burn of something he had carried since he was 18, and Carla told him the Navy would waste his potential. "The stipend helps," he said quietly. "Covers groceries, clothes, school supplies. Doesn't buy the nights she wakes up scared or the court dates or teaching her how to read a level so she never has to depend on anyone who might leave. That part's free." Carla's laugh was short, almost pitying. "Come on, Alex, you're 39. No savings anyone can see, still in that little house on Joy Road like you're waiting for the next deployment that never comes. Mom worries. I worry Leela deserves more than whatever this is." Rosa started to speak. Alex raised a hand, gentle. "She's got more," he said. "A home that's hers, a school she likes, someone who shows up every single day. That's more than a lot of kids get." Leela's eyes dropped to her plate, cheeks flushed. Miguel tried to shift the air. "How's the shop these days? Heard you're doing some work on those Victorians near Eastern Market." "Steady," Alex answered. "Slow season coming, but we're booked through December." Carla wasn't done. Steady doesn't pay for college, or a car when she's 16, or braces if she needs them. You think the state's going to keep writing checks forever? I'm not asking them to, Alex said. 5 more years get her through high school. After that, she chooses. Silence stretched thin. Rosa finally spoke, voice soft but firm. He's doing right by her, Carla. Let it rest. Carla exhaled through her nose. I just want what's best for everyone, including you, Alex. You could have been more. The words landed clean the way they always did. Alex felt them settle in the old place behind his ribs. Leela pushed her chair back. May I be excused? She walked out the back door without waiting for an answer. Alex followed a beat later. On the porch steps, she sat hugging her knees, poster tube beside her. The night smelled of damp leaves and distant diesel. He sat next to her, close enough their shoulders touched. Sorry about that, he said. She's wrong, Leela whispered. You're not waiting, you're already enough, he swallowed. Doesn't always feel that way when your own sister looks at you like a half-finished job. Leela leaned her head against his arm. Tomorrow I get to stand up in front of everybody and say why you're my hero. They'll see. Alex looked out at the dark yard, the chain-link fence separating it from the alley. A dog barked once down the block, sharp and lonely. He didn't tell her he was afraid, not of the presentation, but of what might happen when people heard the truth and still decided it didn't fit. Inside, the clink of dishes continued. Rosa's voice murmured something low to Carla. The porch light buzzed overhead. Tomorrow, the gymnasium would be bright and loud. Tomorrow, someone would hold up Leela's poster and decide, before a single word was spoken, that the man in the center photo couldn't possibly be real. But Sunday afternoon, when Mrs. Marquez lifted the poster to the class and ripped it down the middle with a sound like tearing paper, declaring the story, a nice fiction, but clearly beyond what a man from your background could achieve. Alex would rise from his seat in the back row, and the woman whose car he had fixed without thinking twice would stand with him, turning one teacher's dismissal into the first crack in a wall no one had dared touch before. Sunday afternoon, the Cass Tech Middle School gymnasium smelled of fresh floor wax and the faint rubber tang of old basketballs. Folding chairs scraped against the polished hardwood as 28 seventh graders filed in, parents, and a scattering of grandparents settling along the back bleachers with phones already raised. Alex took a seat near the aisle, still in his shop flannel because he had come straight from a quick drywall patch on a duplex near Eastern Market. Leela sat up front with her class, poster tube clutched against her chest, one foot tapping a silent rhythm under the table. Mrs. Elena Marquez stood at the podium with the calm authority of someone who had taught social studies for 24 years. She wore a navy cardigan over a crisp white blouse, silver hair pulled into a neat twist, voice carrying without strain. She had spent the week praising presentations. One girl's aunt, the pediatric nurse, one boy's uncle, the Detroit firefighter, another student's grandmother who had raised 4 grandchildren alone after a house fire. Mrs. Marquez had offered gentle corrections when voices wavered, smiled encouragement, even clapped once for a particularly heartfelt delivery. Leela was 8th in the alphabet. When her name was called, she walked to the front without hesitation, set the poster on the easel, and stepped aside so the room could see. The central photograph showed Alex and Leela on the Riverwalk boardwalk last July, his arm loose around her shoulders, both pointing at a freighter sliding past Belle Isle. Around it, she had arranged smaller images. Him showing her how to check a foundation crack, the two of them sanding a porch rail under summer sun, him reading aloud from a library copy of The Old Man and the Sea while she leaned against his side on the couch. At the bottom, in blue marker, Alex Rivera rebuilds what the city tries to forget. He rebuilt me. Leela cleared her throat and began. My hero is my dad, not my birth dad. He left when I was little and never came back. Alex became my guardian 3 years ago through foster care. He didn't have to. He chose to. Every day he shows up. He fixes houses for people who can't afford big contractors. He fixes breakfast even when he's tired from night jobs. He fixed me when I thought nothing could be fixed. A few parents smiled. A grandmother in the back dabbed her eye with a tissue. Mrs. Marquez's expression remained neutral, arms folded loosely. Leela continued, voice gaining strength. He used to be in the Navy, hull technician, 12 years. He doesn't talk about it much, but I found his dress uniform once, folded in the closet with medals in a small box. He says the real medals are the people who come home safe. That's why he does what he does now. He makes sure people have safe places. She pointed to a small photo near the bottom. Alex shaking hands with a family at the ribbon cutting for a renovated duplex on the east side, the city commendation plaque visible in the background. This is from last spring. The city gave him an award for volunteer work on affordable housing. He didn't tell me. I read it in the free press. A murmur moved through the parents. Someone whispered, "That's the guy from the Deckwinder Cut project." Mrs. Marquez stepped forward, eyes narrowing slightly. "Leela, that's a touching presentation, but we must be careful with embellishment. This project asks for a personal hero, someone you know intimately. A Navy veteran is plausible. A single tradesman who also receives public commendations and raises a foster child full-time that begins to strain credibility." Leela blinked. "It's not embellished. It's what happened." Mrs. Marquez offered a thin smile. "I've taught in Detroit schools for over 2 decades, dear. I recognize when a narrative has been enhanced for dramatic effect. The service record might hold, but the rest, the constant, rebuilding people theme, the awards, the perfect single-father story, it reads like wish fulfillment rather than fact." She reached for the top edge of the poster. "I'm not penalizing creativity, but we cannot allow the class to accept this as truth without scrutiny." Before Leela could respond, Mrs. Marquez tore the poster cleanly down the center. The rip cracked through the gymnasium like a snapped branch. Gasps rippled outward. Leela froze, hands half raised. "This," Mrs. Marquez said, holding up the halves, "is a moment about integrity. Heroes are real, so are boundaries. People from certain circumstances rarely accumulate such layered accomplishments. It creates unrealistic expectations for others." Alex was on his feet before the echo faded. The chair scraped loud behind him. Every head turned. Mrs. Marquez glanced his way, dismissive. "Sir, please remain seated. This is a classroom exercise." "That's my daughter," Alex said, his voice carried without volume. "And that's my face you just tore in two." The room hushed except for the faint hum of the overhead lights. Mrs. Marquez lifted her chin. "Then perhaps you can explain why a 7th grader believes you're simultaneously a decorated veteran, a community volunteer of note, and a full-time single guardian on a modest income. It doesn't align." Alex took one measured step forward. "It aligns if you've lived it." From the back row, a woman rose, charcoal coat, hair in a low knot, eyes steady and bright. Victoria Reyes. "Actually," she said, voice cutting through the silence, "it aligns perfectly. I'm Victoria Reyes, CEO of Reyes Community Builders. Alex Rivera volunteered over 400 hours last year on our Green Corridor rehabs. The commendation Leela mentioned, I presented it to him myself at the ribbon cutting, and yes, he is precisely who she described." Mrs. Marquez's mouth opened, then closed. Victoria walked down the aisle, heels clicking on the wood. She stopped beside Alex. "I met him 2 weeks ago when my SUV broke down outside his shop. He fixed it in 10 minutes and refused payment. That's the man you just called a fiction." The gymnasium held its breath. Phones stayed raised, but no one spoke. Mrs. Marquez recovered her composure. "Miss Reyes, your testimony is noted, but the presentation still overreaches. Leela will rewrite it with a more grounded subject. Partial credit for effort." Leela's face crumpled. She looked at Alex, eyes shining. Alex placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "She doesn't rewrite anything." Mrs. Marquez's expression hardened. "This is not negotiable." Victoria pulled her phone from her coat pocket and began recording. "It is when bias is on display," and the entire room just witnessed it. But as the confrontation stretched taut in the bright gymnasium light, Principal Nguyen stepped through the side door, alerted by a parent's urgent text, and the quiet man who never sought attention realized the next few minutes would either bury the moment or force the school to confront the assumptions that had let it happen for years. The gymnasium lights burned too bright, turning every face into a mask of stark shadow and surprise. The rip of the poster still echoed in Leela's ears like a slap she hadn't seen coming. She stood frozen at the front, hands hovering uselessly where the poster had been, the two halves now dangling from Mrs. Marquez's fingers like broken wings. Leela felt the heat rush to her face. Not embarrassment, but something sharper, hotter, a feeling she hadn't named yet but recognized from the nights she used to wake up crying because the foster home before Alex had smelled wrong and the door had locked from the outside. Her throat closed. She couldn't speak, couldn't move. All she could do was stare at the tear running straight through Alex's face in the center photo, splitting his quiet smile in half. Mrs. Marquez held the pieces higher, voice calm and instructional, as if she were demonstrating a geometry proof. "This is what happens when we allow fantasy to masquerade as truth. Leela, I'm not punishing imagination. I'm protecting standards. Rewrite it tonight. Choose someone ordinary, someone believable. You'll receive partial credit for the effort you've already shown." The words landed on Leela like cold water. Ordinary, believable. She looked at Alex in the back row, searching for the man who had once knelt in the rain to fix a leaking roof so she wouldn't have to sleep under a bucket again. He was already standing. The chair scraped loud enough to make several kids flinch. "That's enough," Alex said, not loud, not angry, just final. The voicey Principal Nguyen appeared in the gymnasium doorway like a man who had been summoned by the sudden hush itself. He was small, precise, mid-50s, always dressed in the same charcoal suit that seemed one size too large for the gravity of his job. His face carried the practiced calm of someone who had spent decades mediating between angry parents and defensive teachers. But today the calm looked thinner, stretched. He walked down the center aisle without hurry, hands clasped behind his back. The room watched him the way people watch a storm cloud move across open water, knowing something was coming, unsure how hard it would hit. "Mrs. Marquez," he said when he reached the front, voice low but carrying. "A word, please." Mrs. Marquez lowered the torn halves slowly, as if reluctant to let them go. "Principal Nguyen, this is a classroom matter. We were discussing academic integrity." Nguyen's eyes flicked to the pieces in her hand, then to Leela, still standing rigid at the easel, cheeks wet now, though she hadn't made a sound, then to Alex, who had not moved from his spot beside her. Victoria stood a pace away, phone still recording, lens steady. "I'm aware," Nguyen said. "I've also been made aware by several parents in this room that a student's work was publicly destroyed and her credibility questioned in front of her peers. That crosses from classroom management into something else." Mrs. Marquez's jaw tightened. "I was protecting the class from accepting an implausible narrative as fact. Leela's presentation is Leela's truth." Alex cut in, voice quiet but edged now, the first real crack in his usual restraint. "You didn't ask for proof. You didn't speak to her privately. You tore it up and told her it wasn't believable because of where we live, what I do, who we are." The gymnasium was so still the ventilation system sounded loud. A few phones stayed raised, most had lowered as though the moment had grown too private for recording. Nguyen turned to Leela, his tone softened. "Leela, I'm sorry this happened in front of everyone. You don't have to stay here. You can go to my office if you'd like." Leela shook her head once, small but firm. Her voice came out thin but clear. "I want to stay. I want them to hear the rest." Nguyen nodded, respect flickering across his face. He looked back at Mrs. Marquez. "Alina, hand me the pieces, please." She hesitated, then passed them over. Nguyen held the halves gently, studying the tear that bisected Alex's photograph. For a moment he seemed to weigh something heavier than paper. "Mrs. Marquez," he said, "you will return to your classroom. We will speak later privately with union representation if you wish. The assembly is suspended for today. All students and families are dismissed." A low murmur rose. Parents began gathering coats and bags. Mrs. Marquez opened her mouth, closed it, then walked past them toward the side exit, heels clicking sharp against the floor. She didn't look back. Nguyen turned to the room. "Before you go, I want to be clear. What happened here was wrong. Leela's project will receive full credit as submitted. We will review our protocols for how student work is challenged. And we will speak with every family who has raised similar concerns in the past." His gaze moved to Alex and Victoria. "Mr. Rivera, Miss Reyes, thank you for stepping forward. Leela, you showed courage today. More than most adults manage." He handed the torn poster back to Leela. She took it carefully, cradling the pieces against her chest like something wounded. As families filed out, several parents paused near Alex. A mother in a nurse's scrub top touched his arm. "My daughter's project last year got questioned the same way. No video, no apology. Thank you for saying something." Another father, construction vest still on, nodded at Leela. "You did good, kid. Don't let anyone make you small." Leela managed a small nod, eyes still glassy. Outside, the late afternoon sun had broken through the clouds, slanting gold across the parking lot. Alex walked Leela to the truck, one arm around her shoulders. Victoria followed a few steps behind, phone now pocketed. At the driver's door, Alex stopped. "Leela, you okay to ride home?" She looked up at him, eyes red but steady. "I'm not okay yet, but I will be because you were there." He swallowed the knot in his throat. "Always." Victoria stepped closer. "I sent the full clip to the district superintendent's office 10 minutes ago. CC'd the board president and the equity officer. They'll have it before the end of the day." Alex met her eyes. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," she said simply. "But I've seen too many kids like Leela get told their stories don't count. Not this time." Leela looked between them, something shifting in her expression. Curiosity, maybe hope. "You're going to make them listen?" Victoria smiled, small and fierce. "We're going to make sure they can't look away." Alex unlocked the truck. Leela climbed in, still holding the broken poster. He turned back to Victoria. "Thank you," he said. The words felt inadequate, but they were all he had. "Don't thank me yet," she answered. "This isn't over. The video's already spreading, parent group chats, neighborhood pages. By tonight, it'll be on local news feeds. The district will have to respond fast." He nodded once. "Then we keep showing up." She studied him a moment longer, something soft passing across her face. "You always do." She walked to her SUV. Alex watched her go, then slid behind the wheel. Leela stared out the window as they pulled out of the lot. "Dad," she said quietly. "Yeah, kid. I'm scared they'll still think I lied." He reached over and squeezed her hand once. "They can think whatever they want. We know what's true, and now a lot more people do too." The truck turned onto Woodward, the river glinting silver in the distance. Behind them, the school shrank in the rearview mirror, but the moment it held stayed large, sharp, alive. That night, the clip hit TikTok. First a few hundred views, then thousands. Comments flooded in, anger, support, stories from other parents whose children had been dismissed the same way. By midnight, number believe Leela was trending locally. The superintendent's office issued a brief statement promising immediate review. Alex didn't check his phone. He sat on the porch with Leela, the taped-together poster resting between them on the steps. The chain-link fence caught the streetlight, throwing long shadows across the yard. Somewhere beyond the rooftops, the river kept moving, slow, relentless, carrying whatever the city tried to wash away. But Monday morning, when Carla called before sunrise with a voice tight with worry, "Alex, the video's everywhere. Mom saw it. She's crying. And there's a reporter from Channel 7 asking for comment." Alex realized the quiet life he had protected for 3 years was no longer quiet, and the family that once doubted him was about to be forced to see him clearly, whether they were ready or not. Monday morning broke cold and gray over Joy Road. Alex woke before the alarm, the house still dark except for the faint blue glow of the streetlight leaking through the kitchen blinds. He sat at the table with coffee gone cold, phone face down beside the taped-together poster. The clip had kept spreading overnight, views climbing past 50,000 on TikTok, comments stacking like driftwood against the riverbank. Parents shared their own stories. Children whose essays were dismissed as too sophisticated. Presentations questioned because the family didn't look the part. Complaints buried by administrators who preferred quiet compliance. He hadn't slept much. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Leela's face in that gymnasium moment. Frozen, small, the poster halves trembling in her hands. The image looped behind his lids like a bad dream he couldn't shake. The phone buzzed. Carla's name lit the screen. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Alex." Her voice was tight, almost breathless. "Mom saw the video. She's been crying since 6. There's a Channel 7 van parked outside her house. A reporter knocked at 7 asking if she'd comment on the family situation. What the hell is going on?" He rubbed his eyes. "Leela's teacher tore up her hero project in front of the whole assembly, called it unbelievable, called me a fantasy. Someone recorded it, now it's everywhere." Silence stretched. Then Carla exhaled, sharp. "You're telling me a teacher humiliated your kid on camera and now the news is at Mom's door?" "Yeah." Another pause. "Why didn't you call me last night?" "I was with Leela. She needed quiet." "Not more questions?" Carla's voice cracked. "I would have come over. I would have, I don't know, something." Alex looked at the poster on the table, the tear still visible even through the tape, Alex's face split but still smiling. "You can come now, bring Mom if she wants, but no lectures, not today." "I'm not lecturing," Carla said, softer. "I'm scared for her, for you. The video people are saying awful things, some are defending the teacher. Saying you're exaggerating for attention." He felt the old weight settle heavier. "Let them say it, we know what happened." "I'm coming over," she said. "Mom, too, will bring breakfast, and Alex, I'm sorry, for Saturday. For a lot of Saturdays." He didn't answer right away. The apology hung between them like smoke, unexpected, fragile. "Okay," he said finally. "See you soon." He hung up and went to wake Leela. She was already sitting up in bed, knees drawn to her chest, staring at her phone. "They're saying I made you up," she whispered, "that I wanted attention because I'm Foster." Alex sat on the edge of the mattress. "They don't know us. They don't know what 3 years of breakfasts and bad dreams and fixed roofs look like. They see a clip, that's all." Her eyes filled. "I hate that they get to decide what's real." He pulled her into a hug. She buried her face in his shoulder, small shoulders shaking once, twice, then stilling. When she pulled back, her jaw was set. "I'm not hiding today," she said. "If they ask, I'll tell them again." He nodded. "Then we tell them together." Rosa and Carla arrived an hour later with bags of pan dulce and tamales still warm from the corner bakery. Rosa went straight to Lila, wrapping her in arms that smelled of rosewater and home. Carla stood in the doorway a moment longer, eyes red, then crossed the room and hugged Alex, quick, fierce, the way she used to when they were kids and the world felt too big. "I was wrong," she said against his shoulder. "About a lot. I thought I was protecting you by pushing. I was just scared you'd end up like Dad, working yourself into nothing." Alex held her a second longer. "I'm not Dad and I'm not nothing." She stepped back, wiping her eyes. "I know. I see it now. I should have seen it sooner." They ate at the kitchen table, tamales unwrapped, coffee poured, the taped poster propped against the wall like a quiet witness. No one mentioned the news van or the comments. They talked about small things. The new coffee shop on Woodward, how the river looked clearer since the city dredged the old slips, how Leela's history teacher had promised extra credit if she wanted to present the project again in class. When the plates were cleared, Carla spoke. "The district called Mom this morning. They want to meet with you today if possible. Superintendent's office." Alex looked at Leela. She nodded once. "Okay," he said. "We'll go." The district office was a low brick building near the river, windows reflecting the gray water outside. Dr. Ellis met them in a small conference room, silver hair, calm eyes, no notes on the table in front of her. "Thank you for coming so quickly," she said. "I've watched the video multiple times. What happened in that gymnasium was unacceptable. Mrs. Marquez has been placed on immediate administrative leave. We're conducting a full review of her grading and disciplinary history going back 5 years. We've already received additional complaints, parents who never pursued them because they feared retaliation." She looked at Leela. "Your project receives full credit, and more importantly, your voice is being heard. We're drafting new protocols today. No public challenges to student work without documented private discussion first. Mandatory annual bias training, an anonymous reporting line with external oversight." Leela's voice was small but steady. "Will other kids get believed now, or just when there's a video?" Dr. Ellis didn't flinch. "That's why we're changing the system, not just reacting to one incident, but I won't lie, it takes time, and it takes people like you refusing to be silent." Alex spoke then. "We'll help however we can, but Leela comes first." "Always, of course," Dr. Ellis said. "We'd also like to invite you both to speak at the next board meeting. Public comment, your perspective carries weight." Leela looked at Alex. He nodded. "We'll be there," he said. They left the building into pale afternoon light. The river ran steady beside them, carrying bits of the city downstream, fallen leaves, a lost bottle cap, the faint echo of a freighter horn. Alex walked Leela to the truck, hand on her shoulder. "You did good in there," he said. "So did you," she answered. Behind them, Victoria's SUV pulled up. She stepped out, coat open against the wind. "I heard about the meeting," she said. "Wanted to make sure you were okay." Leela smiled, small, real. "We're getting there." Victoria looked at Alex. "The clip's at 100,000 now. Local news picked it up. National outlets are calling. You ready for that?" Alex glanced at the river, then back at her. "Not really, but we didn't start it. We'll finish it." She nodded once. "Then we finish it together." But that evening, when Victoria stayed for coffee and the three of them sat on the porch watching the streetlights come on, she looked at Alex and said quietly, "There's something I need to tell you, something I should have told you 3 years ago when the guardianship papers were signed." And in the pause that followed, Alex felt the ground shift beneath him, because the woman who had stood beside him in the gymnasium had been part of the system that placed Leela in his home, and she had never once let him know. The porch light came on at dusk, casting a soft yellow circle across the steps where Alex, Leela, and Victoria sat. The air carried the faint metallic scent of the river and the distant hum of traffic on Michigan Avenue. Leela had pulled her knees to her chest, the taped poster resting beside her like a patient animal. Victoria cradled a mug of coffee Alex had poured, black, no sugar, the way she had asked without explanation. Alex leaned against the railing, arms folded, watching the streetlights flicker on one by one down Joy Road. Victoria set her mug on the step between them. 3 years ago," she began, voice low enough that it felt private even though the porch was open to the night. "I was still with the Department of Health and Human Services, caseworker in the foster licensing unit. Your application came across my desk in the spring. Single male, Navy veteran, modest income, small bungalow. Most applications like that get flagged for extra scrutiny. Some get denied quietly." Alex felt the words settle like stones in his stomach. He didn't speak. "I read your file," she continued. Background check clean. Home visit notes said the place was tidy, safe, warm. References, your mother, your sister, the shop foreman, spoke about your reliability, your patience. But the deciding page was the one you wrote yourself. 2 paragraphs. You said you weren't trying to save the world. You just wanted to give one kid the kind of home you wished someone had given you when your dad died and your mom worked doubles. You said you knew what it felt like to wake up wondering if anyone would be there when you got home from school. You didn't ask for praise, you just asked for a chance to try. Leela's head lifted slowly. She looked at Victoria, then at Alex, eyes wide. I approved it, Victoria said. I pushed it through faster than protocol allowed. I called the case supervisor myself and said this one was different. That the child who landed here would be lucky. I never told you because caseworkers aren't supposed to get personal. We're supposed to stay neutral. I left the department 6 months later for Ray's Community Builders, but I never forgot the name. Alex Rivera. Silence stretched. The street lamp buzzed overhead. A car passed slowly, headlights sweeping the fence. Alex exhaled through his nose. You could have said something, any time in the last 3 years. I thought about it, she admitted. Every time I drove past your shop or saw your name on a volunteer list for one of our projects. But saying it felt like claiming credit. You did the work, you showed up every day, I just signed a paper. Leela's voice came small but clear. You believed in him before anyone else did. Victoria looked at her, eyes softening. I believed in both of you, and I still do. Alex rubbed the back of his neck, the old habit when words felt too big. I spent 3 years thinking the system just rolled the dice, that we got lucky. Turns out someone fought for us. Not fought, Victoria corrected gently. Advocated, there's a difference, and I'd do it again. Leela reached over and touched Victoria's sleeve, quick, tentative, then pulled back. Thank you. Victoria's smile was small, almost shy. You're welcome, Leela. They sat in the quiet that followed, the kind that doesn't need filling. The river was out there somewhere beyond the rooftops, carrying its steady cargo of silt and memory. Alex felt something loosen in his chest, not the weight lifting entirely, but shifting, making room. Inside the house, the phone rang, Carla probably checking in again. Alex let it go to voicemail. Victoria stood first, brushing her coat. I should go, early site meeting tomorrow, but if the district calls again, or the news, I'll stand with you, whatever comes next. Alex rose too. We'll take it one step at a time. She paused at the top of the steps, looking back at them both. You already are. After her taillights disappeared down the block, Leela leaned against Alex's side. She's nice. Yeah, he said, she is. They went inside. Leela carried the poster to her room, set it carefully on her desk. Alex followed, pausing in the doorway. You okay with all this? He asked. She nodded. It feels bigger now, like more people are watching, but also like more people believe us. He crossed the room and sat on the edge of her bed. They do, and if they don't yet, they will, because we keep showing up. She crawled under the covers, pulled the blanket to her chin. Dad, yeah, kid. I'm glad you're my hero. Even when people don't believe it. He leaned down, kissed her forehead. I'm glad you're mine. He turned off the light and closed the door softly. In the living room, he sat on the couch, phone in hand. The clip had passed 200,000 views. Comments ranged from fury to support to the inevitable trolls questioning his motives. He didn't scroll long. Instead, he opened a new message to Victoria. Thank you, for then. And for now, her reply came almost immediately. You're welcome, for then, and for whatever comes next. He set the phone down and walked to the back door. The chain-link fence stood silver in the moonlight, the small yard quiet except for the rustle of leaves against wire. Beyond it, the city breathed, distant sirens, a radio playing low somewhere down the block, the ever-present pulse of the river. He thought of the guardianship papers he still kept in the desk drawer, the signature he had never connected to a face until tonight. He thought of Leela sleeping down the hall, of the torn poster now mended, of Victoria's quiet admission on the porch. The weight he had carried alone for 3 years felt different now, not lighter exactly, but shared, distributed across more shoulders, and that made the next step possible. Tomorrow the board meeting loomed. Tomorrow the news trucks might multiply. Tomorrow people would ask questions he had never wanted to answer in public. But tonight the house was warm. The girl he loved was safe under his roof, and someone who had once believed in him from behind a desk had stepped into the light beside him. He closed the door against the night and went to bed. But Tuesday morning, when the superintendent's office emailed the official board meeting agenda and Alex saw his name listed under public comment, sandwiched between routine budget items and a rezoning vote, he felt the familiar tightness return because Carla had forwarded the same email with one line. We're coming, all of us. And this time I'm sitting in the front row. The family that had once doubted him was about to watch him stand before strangers and demand the system change, whether they were prepared to see him fully or not. Tuesday morning, the email from the district arrived at 7:14. Subject line stark. Board meeting agenda public comment confirmation. Alex opened it at the kitchen table while Leela ate cereal across from him. Spoon paused midair as she watched his face. His name was there, third under public comment. Alex Rivera, incident at Cass Tech Middle School, February 10th. Below it, the date, next Thursday evening, and the time slot, 7 minutes maximum. The agenda listed routine items first. Budget reallocations, playground resurfacing bids, then rezoning for a vacant lot near the riverfront. His item sat between them like a stone dropped in still water. Leela leaned over. "That's us?" "Yeah," he said, "that's us." She studied the screen a moment longer. 7 minutes isn't very long, long enough to say what matters. He forwarded the agenda to Carla without comment. Her reply came in under 90 seconds. "We're coming, all of us. Mom, Miguel, the kids, I'm sitting in the front row this time. No back row doubts. Call me if you want to practice what you'll say." Alex stared at the message. The old reflex to brush it off to say he'd handle it alone rose and fell without ever reaching his fingers. Instead, he typed, "Thanks. We'll talk tonight." Leela finished her cereal, rinsed the bowl, then came back and stood beside him. "Aunt Carla's different now." "She's trying," Alex said. "That counts." The day passed in ordinary pieces. Drop-off at school, a morning job sealing windows on a duplex near the Deckwinder Cut, lunch from the food truck that parked by the shop every Tuesday. The apprentices kept the radio low, Aretha this time demanding respect, and no one asked about the video still climbing views. They knew better than to crowd him. By 4:30, Alex was home, picking up Leela from the bus stop. She climbed into the truck with her backpack slung low, face brighter than it had been in days. "Miss Rodriguez let me present the project again in class today," she said before he could ask. No one laughed. Deson even clapped when I finished. Alex felt something loosen in his chest. "Good, that's real good." At home, Carla's car was already in the driveway. Rosa sat on the porch steps with a foil pan of arroz con pollo balanced on her knees. Carla stood beside her, arms crossed but not defensive, more like she was bracing for wind. Rosa rose first, hugging Leela tight, then Alex. "Mijo, we brought dinner and questions, but only if you want them." Inside, they ate at the kitchen table, plates passed, forks clinking, the taped poster still propped against the wall like a silent guest. No one rushed. When the dishes were cleared, Carla spoke. "I watched the video again last night," she said. "All the way through, I kept waiting for you to yell, to lose it. You never did. You just stood there, spoke. Let Victoria speak. Let the principal step in." "I would have exploded." Alex shrugged one shoulder. "Exploding doesn't fix anything. It just makes more noise." Rosa reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. "You learned that from your father. He never raised his voice. Even when the plant laid him off, even when the bills stacked up, he just kept going." Carla looked down at her coffee. "I always thought quiet meant weak. I was wrong." Leela spoke then, voice steady. "Dad's not weak. He's the strongest person I know because he doesn't have to prove it every second." The room held the words a moment, then Carla looked up. "Thursday, the board meeting. What are you going to say?" Alex leaned back. "The truth. That Leela's project was her truth. That tearing it up in public wasn't about standards. It was about assumptions. That other kids have had their stories questioned the same way, quieter, with no cameras. That belief shouldn't depend on a viral clip." Carla nodded slowly. "And if they push back, if someone says it's isolated, then I'll point to the other complaints already on file, the ones Dr. Ellis mentioned. And I'll say the system only changes when people stop accepting isolated as an answer." Rosa squeezed his hand once more. "We'll be there, front row, no doubts." After dinner, Carla and Rosa stayed to help Leela with homework while Alex stepped outside. The chain-link fence caught the last of the daylight silver against the darkening yard. He stood there a long time, hands in his pockets, listening to the distant train whistle carry across the river. His phone buzzed. Victoria saw the agenda. "You're speaking Thursday. Need anything? Talking points? Moral support? Coffee?" Before, he typed back all of the above, but mostly just "you there." Her reply came fast. "I'll be there. Front row, right side. Save me a seat." He pocketed the phone and looked up at the sky. Stars were starting to show through the haze, stubborn, faint, refusing to be drowned out by city light. Thursday evening, the board meeting room in the old Cass Tech building smelled of old carpet and coffee left too long on the burner. Rows of chairs filled steadily. parents from the assembly, teachers in solidarity, a reporter from Channel 7 with a small recorder. Rosa, Carla, Miguel, and the teenagers took the front row as promised. Victoria slipped in beside them, coat folded over her arm, offering Alex a small nod when he walked Leela down the aisle. He wore a clean button-down, no tie, nothing that felt like dressing up for someone else's expectations. Leela sat between him and Victoria, poster tube across her lap. The agenda moved through routine business, budget votes, committee reports. Then the chair called public comment. Alex Rivera, the chair said. Alex stood. The room quieted. He walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone once, and began. My daughter Leela presented a hero project about me. Her teacher tore it in half in front of her class and called the story unbelievable. Because a man like me, working class, single, foster guardian, doesn't fit the picture of someone who could accomplish what Leela described. He paused, letting the silence do its work. I enlisted at 18, served 12 years. Came home, started fixing houses the city was ready to tear down. Became Leela's guardian 3 years ago. Volunteered on projects that give people safe places to live. None of that is exaggeration. It's what happened. And Leela wrote what she sees every day. He looked at the board members, then at the room. What happened wasn't about one poster. It was about a pattern. Kids whose truths get questioned because they don't match expectations. Because of where they live, what their parents do, what they look like. Belief shouldn't be conditional. It shouldn't need a video to count. He stepped back. Thank you. The applause started small, then swelled, steady, real. Leela reached up and squeezed his hand when he sat. Victoria leaned across her. You did it. He shook his head once. We did. But after the meeting, when the board chair approached Alex in the hallway with a quiet request, we'd like you on the new Parent Advisory Council. 1-year term, real voice, real votes. Alex felt the ground shift again, because saying yes meant stepping further into the light he had spent years avoiding. And the woman who had once signed his guardianship papers was standing beside him, waiting for his answer with the same steady belief she had shown 3 years before. Thursday evening, the old Cass Tech boardroom smelled of institutional coffee and the faint must of carpet that had seen too many winters. Rows of padded chairs filled slowly, parents from the viral clip, a handful of teachers in quiet solidarity, the Channel 7 reporter with her small recorder and notepad. Rosa claimed the front row center, Carla beside her, Miguel and the teenagers filling out the line. Victoria arrived last, slipping into the seat next to Carla with a small nod to Alex. She wore a simple navy sweater under her coat, hair loose for once, as if she had decided the night didn't require armor. Alex sat beside Leela in the second row, her poster tube across her lap like a talisman. He wore a clean gray button-down, sleeves rolled to the elbows, no tie, no pretense. His hands rested loose on his knees, but inside his pulse beat steady, insistent, the way it used to before a hull inspection in rough water. The agenda moved through routine business. Approval of last month's minutes, a budget line for new playground equipment at 2 elementary schools, a rezoning vote for a vacant parcel near the riverfront. Each item passed with murmured eyes and the scratch of pens. Then the chair, a woman in her late 50s with short silver hair and a voice like worn velvet, called public comment. Alex Rivera, he stood. The room quieted so completely the ventilation system sounded loud. He walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone down an inch, and looked out at the faces, some familiar from the gymnasium, some strangers, all watching. My daughter Leela presented a hero project about me, he began. Her teacher tore it in half in front of the assembly and called the story unbelievable. Because a man like me, working class, single, foster guardian, doesn't accumulate the kind of life Leela described. Navy service, volunteer commendations, a home she feels safe in, it didn't fit the picture. He paused, no one moved. I enlisted at 18, served 12 years as a hull technician. Came home, bought a small house on Joy Road with VA money, started fixing buildings the city was ready to demolish. Became Leela's guardian 3 years ago. Volunteered on projects that put roofs over families who had none. None of that is fiction, it's what happened, and Leela wrote what she lives every day. His voice stayed level, but the room felt the weight in it. What happened wasn't about one poster, it was about a pattern. Kids whose truths get questioned because they don't match expectations. Because of zip codes, skin, income, parents who work nights instead of boardrooms, belief shouldn't be conditional. It shouldn't require a viral video to count. He looked at the board members one by one. I'm not asking for punishment. I'm asking for change. Mandatory annual bias training for every staff member. Clear protocols, no public challenges to student work without private discussion first. An anonymous reporting line that actually gets followed up with external review. Because the next Leela shouldn't need a camera to be believed. He stepped back. Thank you. The applause started soft, Rosa first, then Carla, then the row behind them, then swelled until it filled the room. Leela reached up and squeezed his hand when he sat. Her fingers were warm, steady. The chair waited for quiet. Thank you, Mr. Rivera. The board will take your comments under advisement. Two more speakers followed, parents whose children had faced similar dismissals, voices shaking but clear. Then the chair closed public comment and moved to new business. After the meeting adjourned, the board chair approached Alex in the hallway. She was shorter than he expected, eyes direct. Mr. Rivera, she said, we'd like to invite you to serve on the new Parent Advisory Council. 1-year term to start. Real voice, policy input, oversight on the equity audit, voting rights on training protocols. Your perspective is exactly what we need. Alex felt the ground tilt slightly. He glanced at Leela, who stood beside him, then at Victoria a few paces away, watching without speaking. I'm not a committee person, he said. You don't have to be polished, the chair answered. You just have to be honest, and you are. Leela tugged his sleeve. Say yes, Dad, for the other kids. He looked down at her, eyes bright, chin up, the same quiet fierceness she had shown in the gymnasium. Then at Carla in the background, nodding once, no doubt in her face. At Rosa, hands clasped, proud in a way that made his throat tighten. Okay, he said. 1 year if Leela's okay with the extra meetings. The chair smiled, small, real. We'll make it work around her schedule. She handed him a card. We'll send the charter draft next week. Welcome aboard. As the hallway emptied, Victoria stepped closer. You just said yes to more light, she said quietly. I did, she studied him a moment. Scared? A little. Good, she said. Means it matters. They walked out together into the February night. The air was sharp, carrying the faint smell of the river and wet pavement. Rosa and Carla waited by the cars, hugging Leela, then Alex. Carla held him a second longer. I'm proud, she whispered. Really proud. He nodded against her shoulder. Thanks for being here. In the truck on the way home, Leela leaned her head against the window. You're going to change things, she said. We're going to try, he answered. At home, he parked and sat a moment, engine ticking as it cooled. Leela climbed out, poster tube under her arm, but paused at the door. Dad, yeah, kid, I love you. The words landed simple, clean. He felt them settle deep. Love you too, he said. She went inside. Alex stayed in the driver's seat another minute, staring at the chain-link fence lit by the street lamp. Beyond it, the city breathed, train whistled distant, river moving unseen but always there. His phone buzzed. Victoria, 1 year on the council. Big step, proud of you. He typed back, couldn't have done it without you standing there. Her reply, you would have, but I'm glad I got to watch. He pocketed the phone and stepped out into the cold. The porch light waited, warm circle on the steps. Inside, Leela was already at the table, spreading out homework. Rosa had left a plate of flan in the fridge. Carla had texted a single emoji, a heart. The weight he had carried alone felt different now, shared, distributed, lighter in the way that made room for more. He closed the door behind him and went inside. But Friday morning, when the district released its formal findings, Mrs. Marquez's contract not renewed, new training mandated district-wide, and a public apology assembly scheduled for the following week. Alex opened his email to find a second message from Victoria. A draft partnership proposal between Ray's community builders and his restoration shop, offering him a lead role in training apprentices from foster care, with a single line in the subject. Let's build something that lasts. And for the first time in years, the man who had spent his life repairing what others abandoned began to wonder if he was finally ready to let someone help repair part of him too. Friday morning, the district's formal findings landed in Alex's inbox at 8:03. The subject line was plain. Update. Cass Tech Middle School Incident Review. He opened it at the kitchen table while Leela finished packing her lunch. The document was short, clinical, but every line carried weight. Mrs. Alina Marquez's contract would not be renewed at the end of the semester. Indefinite paid administrative leave effective immediately. All instructional staff to complete 12 hours of mandatory implicit bias and cultural competency training before spring break. New protocols for challenging student work, private discussion first, documented rationale, no public dismissal, piloted in middle schools next quarter. External equity audit of the entire district scheduled for fall. And finally, public apology assembly at Cass Tech Middle School the following Wednesday afternoon. Voluntary attendance. Superintendent Ellis to deliver the statement herself. Leela leaned over his shoulder. "She's gone. Not gone yet," Alex said, "but she won't teach here again." Leela exhaled, half relief, half something deeper. "Good." He forwarded the email to Carla and Rosa with a single line, "It's happening." Carla's reply came in seconds, "We're going to the apology assembly." Front row again. No arguments. Alex smiled, small, tired, real, and set the phone down. The day moved in quiet pieces. Drop-off at school, a morning job shoring up a porch on a duplex near the Deckwinder Cut, lunch eaten, standing in the shop, while the apprentices argued over the best way to patch old plaster. No one mentioned the news. They didn't need to. The radio played low, Gladys Knight singing about midnight trains, and the work kept moving. Wednesday arrived clear and cold. The Tech auditorium was fuller than expected. Parents, teachers, a few board members, Channel 7 crew with one camera in the back. Rosa and Carla took the front row again, Miguel and the teenagers beside them. Victoria slipped in next to Alex and Leela, offering a quick squeeze of Leela's hand. The lights dimmed slightly. Superintendent Ellis stepped to the podium, no notes, no teleprompter. Simple gray suit, hair pulled back, eyes scanning the room. "On February 10th, she began, a 7th grade student presented a hero project honoring her guardian. Her teacher responded by publicly destroying the work and questioning its truthfulness in front of her peers. That action was harmful, unnecessary, and wrong." She paused. The room held its breath. "We failed Leela Rivera that day. We failed other students whose stories have been dismissed in quieter ways over the years. On behalf of this district, I apologize, unreservedly, to Leela, to Mr. Alex Rivera, and to every family who has felt diminished in our buildings. We are implementing changes, annual bias training, revised protocols, external audits, better oversight. These are commitments, not promises. The real work belongs to all of us." She stepped back. Applause rose, steady, genuine. Leela reached for Alex's hand. He held it tight. After the assembly, families lingered in the lobby. Quiet thanks, shared stories. One mother pressed a small envelope into Leela's hand. A thank you card from her daughter, who had rewritten her own hero project after seeing the clip and earned her first A in months. Victoria found them near the exit. "You did this," she said to Alex. He shook his head. "Leela did. The video did. You pushed it forward. I just spoke when it was time." She smiled faintly. "Still counts." Outside, the sun slanted gold across the parking lot. They walked to the truck together, Rosa and Carla trailing, Leela between Alex and Victoria. At the driver's door, Victoria stopped. "I sent you something else yesterday," she said. "Check your email when you get home." Alex raised an eyebrow. "Another agenda?" "Better," she answered. "A partnership offer. Ray's Community Builders wants to fund a training program, apprenticeships for older foster youth and recent emancipations. Hands-on restoration work, paid stipends, mentorship. I'd like you to lead it. Full-time coordinator if you want it, benefits, salary bump, and room to bring Leela in on smaller projects when she's ready." Leela looked up at him, eyes wide. "Dad," Alex exhaled. "I'll read it tonight, talk it over with her." "With all of you?" Victoria nodded once. "No pressure, just think about saying yes to something that says yes back." She walked to her SUV. Rosa touched Alex's arm. "Mijo, that's good. Really good." Carla gave him a small, real smile. In the truck on the way home, Leela leaned her head against the window. "If you take it, can we still fix houses together sometimes?" "Every chance we get," he promised. That night, after Leela had gone to bed, Alex opened Victoria's email attachment. The proposal was thorough. 2-year funding, curriculum outline, timelines, budget for tools and safety gear. Buried in the acknowledgments. Special thanks to Alex Rivera, whose quiet integrity reminded us what leadership looks like when no one is watching. He stared at the screen a long time. The porch light was still on when he stepped outside. The chain-link fence stood silver under the street lamp. Beyond it, the city breathed, distant train, river moving unseen. He thought of the guardianship papers in the desk drawer, of the woman who had signed them without claiming credit, of Leela sleeping down the hall, of the apology that had finally come, not perfect but real. He replied to Victoria, "Read it twice, I'm in, let's build it." Her answer came almost immediately, "I'll send the contract tomorrow." "Welcome aboard, Alex." He pocketed the phone and looked up at the sky. Stars showed through the haze, stubborn, faint, refusing to be drowned out. Inside, the house was warm. The girl he loved was safe. And for the first time in years, the path ahead felt less like something he had to carry alone. But the following Saturday, when Alex met Victoria at a small diner near the river to sign the initial agreement, she slid an envelope across the table. Not the contract, but a single photograph. Leela at 8 years old, standing outside the DHHS office the day the guardianship was finalized, Alex kneeling beside her with a hand on her shoulder. On the back, in Victoria's handwriting, I kept this, because some moments deserve to be remembered. And in that quiet booth, with the river glinting through the window, Alex understood that the woman who had once believed in him from behind a desk had been carrying a piece of their story all along. And now she was asking, without words, if he was ready to carry a piece of hers too. Saturday morning, the small diner on Michigan Avenue smelled of coffee grounds and bacon grease. The kind of place where the booths had vinyl seats patched with duct tape, and the windows overlooked the river running slow and silver under a pale sky. Alex arrived first, sliding into the back booth with a view of the water. He wore his usual work flannel, sleeves rolled, hands wrapped around a mug of black coffee that had gone lukewarm while he waited. Victoria walked in at 9:02, coat open, hair loose against the collar. She carried a slim folder under one arm and a small paper envelope in her hand. She slid in across from him, setting both items on the table between them. "Morning," she said. "Morning." The waitress refilled their coffee without asking. They waited until she walked away. Victoria opened the folder first. The contract, 2-year funding guarantee through Ray's Community Builders. You as lead coordinator, full-time, salaried, benefits through the nonprofit. Curriculum outline, safety protocols, stipend structure for apprentices. We start small. 6 kids the first cohort, ages 16 to 21, all current or recently emancipated from foster care. Hands-on restoration work, framing, drywall, finish carpentry. You teach them. They earn while they learn. And we build a pipeline for permanent jobs in the trades. Alex scanned the pages. The numbers were solid, modest but fair, enough to cover the bungalow mortgage, Leela's school expenses, a little breathing room for the first time in years. He looked up. "This is real." "It is," he exhaled. "I'll need to talk to Leela, make sure the hours work around her schedule." Victoria nodded. "Of course, we can adjust. She's part of this too if she wants to be." He set the contract aside. "I'll sign today, but I want one change." She raised an eyebrow. "Room for the younger ones," he said, "not just 16 plus. After-school program for middle school kids, basic skills, tool safety, small projects, Leela's age group. Give them something to hold on to before the system spits them out." Victoria's expression softened. "Done. I'll add it to the amendment." He picked up the pen, signed where the tabs indicated, initialed the changes she noted on the spot. When he slid the folder back, she didn't take it immediately. Instead, she pushed the small paper envelope toward him. "This isn't part of the deal," she said quietly. "Just something I kept." He opened it. Inside was a single photograph, slightly creased at the corners, taken 3 years earlier outside the DHHS office downtown. Leela at 8 years old, small backpack on her shoulders, standing on the sidewalk in a too-big coat. Alex knelt beside her, one hand on her shoulder, the other holding the folder of signed papers. They were both smiling, tentative but real. On the back, in Victoria's neat handwriting, the day it became permanent. "I kept this because some moments deserve to be remembered." Alex stared at the image a long time. The diner noise faded to background, clink of silverware, low murmur of voices, river lapping against the pilings outside. "You were there," he said. "I was the caseworker on duty," she answered. "I walked you both out after the judge signed. Watched you put her in the truck. She looked at you like you'd hung the moon. I went back to my desk and cried for 10 minutes. Then I left the department 6 months later. But I kept the photo, tucked it in my desk drawer. Moved it to my new office. Never showed it to anyone until now." He turned the picture over again. "Why now?" "Because you're about to step into something bigger, and I wanted you to know you didn't get here alone. Someone saw you. Believed in you before you even asked." He looked up at her. The diner light caught the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, lines earned from years of seeing too many stories end badly and a few that ended right. "Thank you," he said. The words felt small, but they carried everything he meant. She reached across the table, covered his hand with hers, just once, brief, warm. "You're welcome." They sat in silence a moment longer. Outside, a freighter horn sounded low and long, carrying across the water. Alex slipped the photo back into the envelope, then into his shirt pocket, close where he could feel it against his chest. "I should get home," he said. "Leela's waiting to hear about this." Victoria nodded. "Tell her the after-school piece is hers if she wants it. We'll name it after her if she says yes." He smiled, small, real. "She'll say yes." They stood. She paid the tab before he could reach for his wallet. He didn't argue. At the door she paused. "Alex." "Yeah." This isn't just a job, it's a bridge, for kids like Leela, for you too. He looked at her, really looked. The quiet strength in her eyes, the way she had carried a photograph of his and Leela's first real day together for 3 years without ever asking for credit. I know, he said. She stepped outside first. He followed. They walked to their vehicles side by side, the river glinting beside them. When they reached her SUV, she turned. See you Monday, she said. First planning meeting. Monday, he echoed. She climbed in. He watched her pull away, taillights fading into the morning traffic. In the truck on the way home, he kept one hand on the envelope in his pocket. The photograph felt warm against his skin. Leela was waiting on the porch when he pulled up. She ran down the steps, eyes bright. Well, she asked. He climbed out, knelt so they were eye level. It's a yes, full-time apprentices. And an after-school program for kids your age. You in? Her face lit up. I'm in. He pulled her into a hug. She smelled of shampoo and the faint sweetness of the flan Rosa had left last night. Inside, he showed her the contract. She traced the lines with her finger, then looked up. And Victoria, she's the one making it happen, he said. She's been part of this longer than we knew, Leela smiled. I like her. Yeah, Alex said softly. Me too. That night he sat on the back porch, envelope on the step beside him. The chain-link fence caught the moonlight. Beyond it, the city lights reflected on the river, scattered, stubborn, refusing to be swallowed. He thought of the photograph in his pocket, of the woman who had kept it all these years, of the girls sleeping down the hall, of the apprentices who would walk through the shop door next month, tools in hand, futures possible. The clip had passed 1 million views last week. Other districts were already adopting similar protocols. The river kept what it carried: silt, secrets, small hopes. And tonight, for the first time in a long time, Alex felt like he was carrying something back. But the following Wednesday, when the school unveiled the new Hall of Heroes display in the main corridor, a long wall of framed student posters, Leela's restored original at the center, Alex stood at the chain-link fence outside with Victoria beside him, watching a hesitant new 7th grader approach with his own rolled poster, eyes flicking nervously between the frames and Alex's face. And in that moment, as the boy asked in a small voice, "Is it okay if I hang mine too?" Alex knelt to help, knowing the quiet revolution they had started was no longer his alone. It belonged to every child who dared to claim their story, and to the woman who had believed in his long before the world saw it. Wednesday afternoon, the main corridor of Cass Tech Middle School felt different, brighter, somehow, even though the fluorescent lights were the same ones that had hummed overhead for decades. The new Hall of Heroes stretched along one long wall, 24 framed posters now, each one matted and protected behind clear acrylic. Firefighters, nurses, mechanics, single mothers who worked doubles, soldiers who never spoke of their medals, foster parents who had opened their doors when no one else would. Faces of every color, every background, every quiet kind of courage. Leela's original poster, professionally restored, the tear mended so seamlessly it was almost invisible, hung at the center, the largest frame, the anchor. Alex stood at the chain-link fence outside the corridor windows, hands in his pockets, watching through the glass as students drifted past the display between classes. The fence caught the late May sun, throwing diamond patterns across the grass. The river glinted beyond the schoolyard, wide and steady, carrying the city's slow pulse downstream. Victoria stood beside him, coat slung over one arm, hair moving in the soft breeze. They had come straight from the first planning meeting for the apprenticeship program. 16 and 17-year-olds already signed up, tools ordered, the after-school pilot for middle schoolers scheduled to start in June. Leela had insisted on helping design the first small project, birdhouses for the community garden along the Deckwinder Cut. Inside, a new 7th grader approached the display, small for his age, backpack too big, eyes flicking nervously from frame to frame. He carried a rolled poster under one arm, the edges already curling from being gripped too tight. He stopped in front of Leela's poster, studied it a long moment, then looked out the window, straight at Alex. The boy hesitated, then pushed through the side door and walked toward the fence. His sneakers scuffed the concrete. He stopped a few feet away, shifting his weight. "Mr. Rivera?" His voice was small but clear. Alex knelt so they were eye level. "Yeah," the boy swallowed. "I saw the video and I made this." He unrolled the poster slowly as if afraid it might tear, in the center. A photograph of his grandmother in her diner uniform, smiling behind the counter at Lou's on Michigan Avenue. Around it, smaller pictures, her teaching him to tie his shoes, the two of them at the river last summer, her handing him a plate of pancakes after a late shift. At the bottom, in careful marker, my grandma works every day so I can go to school. She's my hero. Alex read it twice. The boy watched his face, eyes wide with the fear of being told it wasn't enough. It's good, Alex said quietly. Real good, the boy exhaled. Is it okay if I hang it up there with the others? Alex stood. It's more than okay, it's yours. He glanced at Victoria. She nodded once, already moving toward the door. Come on, she said to the boy. Let's find Miss Rodriguez. She has the tape and the hooks. The boy looked back at Alex. Thanks. Alex rested a hand lightly on his shoulder, just once, gentle. Your truth belongs here. No one gets to tear it down. The boy nodded, small but certain, and followed Victoria inside. Alex stayed at the fence, watching through the glass as they walked to the display. Miss Rodriguez appeared, smiling, helping the boy choose a spot near the bottom row, eye level for the younger kids. They taped the poster carefully, smoothed the edges, stepped back together. The boy stared at his grandmother's face, now framed and safe among the others. He turned once, found Alex through the window, and gave a small wave. Alex lifted a hand in return. Victoria came back out a few minutes later, coat over her shoulder. She stopped beside him. He's smiling, she said. Yeah. They stood in silence a while. The sun dropped lower, turning the river to molten copper. A freighter horn sounded, long, low, familiar. Victoria spoke first. The program starts in 2 weeks. First cohort, you ready? I think so. She turned to face him. You don't have to be perfect at it, just be you. That's what they need. He looked at her, really looked. The quiet strength in her eyes, the way she had carried a photograph of his and Leela's first real day together for 3 years without ever asking for credit. The way she stood here now beside a chain-link fence watching a boy hang his truth without fanfare. Victoria, he said. She waited. I kept the picture you gave me, he said quietly, in my wallet so I see it every day. And every time I look at it, I think you saw something in me before I even saw it in myself. That's not small. Her expression softened, eyes holding his a beat longer than usual. I kept one too, she said, voice almost a whisper. The same photo, on my desk, so I remember why I left that job and started building things instead of just approving them. The breeze moved between them, carrying the scent of the river and new-cut grass. Neither moved to close the gap further. They didn't need to. The quiet between them was its own kind of promise, slow, steady, built on years of small acts no one else had seen. Inside the corridor, the boy was still staring at his poster. A few other kids had gathered, pointing, asking questions. Leela appeared at the end of the hall, backpack slung over one shoulder, spotted Alex through the window and waved, bright, unhesitating. Alex lifted a hand in return. Victoria touched his arm lightly. She's proud of you. I'm proud of her. They turned back toward the parking lot together, walking side by side. The river kept moving beside them, slow, relentless, carrying whatever the city gave it. Silt, secrets, small hopes, the faint echo of horns and laughter and stories finally believed. At the truck, Alex paused. Monday, planning meeting. I'll bring coffee. She smiled, small, real. Black, no sugar. Black, no sugar. She climbed into her SUV. He watched her pull away, taillights catching the last of the sun. Then he got in the truck, started the engine, and drove toward home. Toward the bungalow on Joy Road, toward the girl who had chosen him, toward the apprentices who would soon walk through his shop door, toward the life that had once felt like something he had to hold together alone. Now it felt like something shared. The river glinted in the rearview mirror as he turned onto Woodward, wide, steady, carrying the city forward one quiet current at a time. And every child who passed the Hall of Heroes could see their own reflection in the glass.